Hello, and welcome to the inaugural podcast of Level Up Your English with Kathleen Elise. So, I just want to let you know I'm going to be starting doing these lives every Monday. I know today is not Monday, but we'll be doing them every Monday at noon. And the purpose of them is to just get you to answer questions that I've been getting and to give you a greater understanding of what it is that true fluency means and what it deals with. So we'll be covering the 4 pillars of English fluency, advanced English fluency, and 4 pillars of 360-degree English fluency, so that you get a really good understanding of why it's so important to go beyond just being proficient in English. And by that, I mean just understanding the mechanics and having a vocabulary that's out of this world. It's more than just knowing words. It's more than just knowing how to say the words and what they mean, and maybe even how to write and write well. It's more about adding that other level, the personal level of the culture, and why do the people who speak English in whichever area of the world you're working with, why do they speak it the way they do? Why do they use certain phrases? Why do they behave the way they do? Or how did that particular trait develop? Because the more you begin to understand how the people and the language developed into what you're dealing with now, the better you can communicate and the more effectively you can communicate. So we're going to be going over all sorts of different topics in this podcast. And like I said, every Monday at noon Eastern time. So, but today I wanted to go over exactly what it is that I do. I am a certified teacher of English as a foreign language. However, for me, I go beyond just being an English teacher. I take you wherever you're at. You can be a beginner, someone who you might need to learn the English language, which I will do for you. I will teach you that. But in the process of teaching you that, I will take you beyond just the mechanics, and I will take you into the whole aspect of communicating in the culture. The culture has a language in and of itself, and that cultural language helped influence the spoken language, the written language. So that's what I do for you. And I combine I've had, we'll say, over 30 years experience. It's close to 40 years of experience in corporate communications. I started working in an office when I was in high school, early on when I was 15. And so I've been around, I've had to communicate on a higher level from a young age and beyond my years. So I've learned how to really work with all sorts of personalities and in many different situations, from everyday off the cuff situations to real crisis situations. And so those everyday encounters are, in a sense, a culture of their own. They have a whole history and a background, and so I've learned how to deal with people where they're at and to communicate with them in a way that they can hear it and that they can understand and process and accept and work with and, come out the other side all the better for our communicating together. So that's what I want to bring to you here when we're talking about English. So, and there are other areas other than just like, for example, I I am I work with one of my favorite customers. My favorite client so far was a woman who she's a native French speaker from Canada, and she'd been in the United States. She married an American, and so she had been living here for 25 years, and her husband had died, and so she had written a book about how she dealt with her grief and how she came, she started on the one side of the grief and how she walked through it and came out the other side, and then how she learned to use that process in all different areas of her life. So she really felt it was important to share this process with the world. And so she had started to write, I'm going to call it a parable. It seems on the surface as though it's a children's story, but it really isn't. It's meant for any age at all. And it's a fascinating story. It's a sweet and endearing story, but it's so powerful in her message. And so I helped her shape it from her rudimentary English into the story that it is today. So it was more, we didn't start out to do English lessons because she didn't need the English lessons. Her pronunciation's great, her comprehension of the language and her ability to use it is great. But what we did was we worked together to elevate her language so that she could present a captivating story to the world, so that her message would be communicated the way it needed to be communicated to an English-speaking audience. And that's, I guess, the essence of what I do. If you're an artist or a singer, if you're a businessman or a business person, if you're a teacher, if you're a student, no matter what your profession, I'm here to help you bring out your best in the English language. I'm here to help you communicate your absolute best to an English speaking audience. And so that involves understanding more than just the words, more than just the mechanics of how to say something or how to put the words together, or it involves more than knowing the the technical correct things to say. It also involves communicating with the person in front of you and being able to, okay, from their cultural point of view, what is actually being said without this person saying anything to me. So, for example, if I were speaking to someone who's not from an English based culture, and they reacted in a certain way to something that I said, or maybe I just came upon them and they were upset. In order for me to communicate correctly with them and effectively with them, I need to think in their mindset. I need to, so say it was a person, a French person, or German or whatever, Italian. I would need to I would need to have an understanding of an Italian or a German or a French personality from their viewpoint, from their cultural viewpoint, so that number one, I would be able to know whether this is a problem and they really need help, because in my culture, it might be, I lost my words. If I were to look at someone in that state in my culture, that might say, oh my goodness, they really need help. But in a different culture, it might not mean that same thing. So I'm here to help you think in the English mindset, from the English viewpoint, so that you can assess the situation and not only know what to say, but how to approach the situation and all sorts of minute things, that you're not going to pick up on unless someone shows you. And who better to show you than a native English speaking person? So there you go. That's what I do. So this today is going to be short because it's our first one. I just want to get you familiar with what I do. And well, why don't we just tell you why I do this? Because my passion for sharing this information is that the world is such a mess today, and there's no denying that. And people talk about, let's make this world a better place. Well, what better place to start than learning how to communicate with each other? If we can't talk to each other, if we can't understand each other, then how are we ever going to get anywhere? How are we ever going to be able to make things better? If we're always stuck on our side of the coin, as they say. If we're only stuck in our own heads, if we're not able to interpret correctly what we're seeing from other people in the world around us. And so I know my language, I know the English speaking mindset. I happen to be American. I have traveled, so I have a good idea of a British mindset. I have some idea of an Australian mindset. But I have the English speaking culture is my culture. So who better to show you around than a native? So, and being a writer, I love words. I relish saying words. You'll notice it's hard for me to cut off a video sometimes because I love sharing what the knowledge that I have, and I love sharing the joy that I have found in discovering my own language, never mind discovering French and German and now Korean. So I'm here to not only share my knowledge, but share my passion and to help you see the beauty that can be found in learning a new language and learning a new way to express yourself. Because you might not have the same, think of your language as a palette of paints, and you're an artist and you're painting your words, you're painting your messages out there with the words that you say or the words that you write, the words that you don't say, and the way you communicate non-verbally. And your culture may not have, it certainly won't have the same palette, the same colors, the same techniques of communicating your message that another language might have. And so by learning another language, you're adding an entire new palette of colors and techniques to your ability to communicate, which is why I love learning new languages. Now, I'm not fluent in them, but the more I can learn of each of the languages that I know, then the better off I'm going to be when I meet people from that culture or who speak that language, because I will have that understanding. I'll have a deeper understanding of the person in front of me. And so I can communicate better because I understand more. Um, so that's what I want to share with you. And when you hear the term Advanced English Fluency Coach, that might scare people away, thinking, well, I have to be advanced in my English abilities in order to be able to work with you. But that's not the case. And that's another reason I wanted to come live and explain, because what the advanced refers to in Advanced English Fluency Coach is that we're taking your current fluency level, whatever that may be, and we are bringing you to an advanced level of fluency. So you might just be starting out. You might only know a little bit of English. But by starting out with an advanced fluency coach like myself, then you're giving yourself a far more solid foundation in communicating in English. And I think that's one of the main things I try to help you understand, is that learning a language isn't just learning words and learning rules and learning patterns of speech. It's learning the act of communicating. And if we can eliminate the whole concept of learning a language as drudgery, as drilling, as almost a military activity, then that opens us up to, wait a minute, this is actually an adventure, and I'm on an adventure to a whole other world that I can combine with the world that I've grown up in. And now not only am I expanding my world, but I'm increasing my ability to move around in both worlds. And if I can move around in both worlds, well, what's stopping me from moving around in a third world, or a fourth world, or a fifth world? When I learn a new language, when I learn how to communicate using different cultural references here, I guess is the word. So that's what these weekly meetings are going to be all about. And so, yes, these meetings will definitely have a theme to them, but they're meant to be interactive. I'm coming live because I want to be able to have full one-on-one access with you to answer your questions right then and there. And if you have a question with how to pronounce something, I can help you right here. It's the closest we can get to, meeting for coffee and chatting. So that's the purpose of these meetings. Again, every Monday at noon. And it's what I do, and it's why I do it. So we're going to end this one today a little early, and we will see you next week. All righty.